by Florian Eder, the 8th of January 6:52 a.m. Central Europe Time. Updated the 8th of January 7:05 a.m. Central Europe Time. Press play to listen to this article presented by Goldman Sachs by Florian Eder with ZOYA SHEFTALOVICH presented by Sent Tips here. Tweeted Florian Eder, listen to Playbook and view in your browser. Iran retaliates. In what it described as a part retaliation, Iran fired a series of ballistic missiles at military bases in Iraq that house U.S. troops. The move came in response to the U.S. airstrike that killed top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani last week. Washington isn't yet aware of any casualties from the strikes, which according to the Pentagon targeted the al-Assad and Erbil bases, but is still assessing the situation, Reuters reports. The Iranian attacks put Washington and Tehran further along the path to an all-out war, write Politico's Nahal Tusi, Andrew Desiderio and Nancy Cook. Pumping the brakes. In the wake of the strikes, Iranian officials signaled they don't want the crisis to spiral out of control, with Foreign Minister Javad Zarif tweeting, "We do not seek escalation our war, but will defend ourselves against any aggression." U.S. President Donald Trump also took to social media to dial down the heat, saying, "All is well." Missiles launched from Iran at two military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world, by far. He added that he would make a statement this morning. Backtracking, prior to Iran's strikes, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Tuesday insisted that any retaliatory measures by American forces against Iran would abide by the laws of war, after Trump suggested that he may target cultural sites, which could amount to a war crime. Quint Forgy has the story. German soldiers are safe. The German soldiers stationed at the Erbil base are all fine, a spokesperson for the Bundeswehr told Reuters. Berlin on Tuesday pulled some of its military personnel out of Iraq, citing security concerns. Meanwhile, Ukrainian plane crashes in Tehran. Hours after the strikes, a Ukrainian plane carrying at least 170 people crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran's main airport, killing all on board, Iranian state TV reported. According to the report, the crash is suspected to have been caused by mechanical issues. Associated Press has more. Just before news of the crash emerged, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration barred U.S. pilots and carriers from flying in areas of Iraqi, Iranian and some Persian Gulf airspace overnight, warning of the potential for miscalculation or misidentification for civilian aircraft amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Last one standing. As the situation in the Middle East spirals, the EU is perhaps the last believer in the Iran nuclear agreement, or JCPOA. It is important for us to make it clear once again that this agreement has not lost its value for us, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said on Tuesday in Brussels, where he arrived for a meeting on Libya and Iran with his colleagues from France, the UK, and Italy, plus EU High Representative Josep Borrell. But we cannot accept Iran suspending its obligations. There must be a reaction to this, and I will now discuss this further with my British and French colleagues, which is exactly what they did, in the so-called E3 format, at the UK ambassador's residence. In a readout from the meeting, an EU diplomat praised the great unity in the assessment of the situation and for a closely coordinated approach to contribute to de-escalation. That was, of course, before Iran's retaliatory strikes overnight. Speaking of unity, behind the sober public pronouncements from Brussels and national capitals about the need for de-escalation in the Middle East, officials are seething, writes Politico's Matthew Karnishnig. No one saw the Iranian escalation coming. Within hours of Soleimani's assassination, Europe's shock over the Iranian general's killing morphed into anger at Trump. Europe's worries that a wider conflict in the Middle East could trigger deep economic and political disruption on the continent itself. As Europe learned during Syria's civil war, its geographic proximity to the region leaves it particularly exposed to conflicts there. Read Matt's full analysis here. And where's Boris, UK? Prime Minister Boris Johnson stands accused of deserting his post during his premiership's first international crisis. Annabelle Dixon has the story. **** A message from Goldman Sachs. In most countries across Europe, green energy is already undercutting the costs of energy generated from burning fossil fuels, causing a power shift toward renewables. Find out why Europe is leading the charge to cleaner power, and what it means for our future. ***. Good morning. As we await European reactions to the situation in the Middle East, the EU's College of Commissioners is coming together for an extra early start. Its weekly catch-up has been pushed forward to 8 a.m. this morning to allow President Ursula von der Leyen to fly to London for a series of meetings later this morning. It's a foreign policy frenzy as the EU seeks to avoid further escalation or outright war in its neighborhood. Plus, there's a divorce to talk about. But before we get to all that, let's mark the end of an era. The International Monetary Fund will soon shutter its local bureau in Athens in a move signaling Greece's readiness to leave behind a decade marked by financial crisis. We look forward to a whole new chapter in our relationship, a relationship of positive cooperation, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said on Tuesday after meeting with IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva at the fund's Washington HQ. Nectarius Stamoulis has the story. Brexit's back, here we go again. There's less than a year left to conclude and ratify a trade agreement between the EU and the UK. The next cliff edge is nigh. And so, regardless of the various assertions which accompanied the process from day one, that Brexit shouldn't be a top priority for Brussels and the EU, this year, at least, it is going to be one. In 2020, the EU's no. one obsession might well be Brexit again, who, in the end, wants to have wasted the past 3.5 years, countless summits and the work and energy of a whole EU task force, only to get the default option, a no-deal divorce. Even Emmanuel Macron bothered to talk about Brexit on Tuesday, asking Britain to show flexibility during negotiations to come. Trade talks with the UK will be a complex negotiation that should be approached in cold blood by our negotiator Michel Barnier, the French president said Tuesday in a statement to the press delivered in Paris alongside visiting Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković. Macron laid out two principles that should guide the negotiations: the preservation of deep ties with the UK, namely on foreign policy and security, and the defense of the interests of the EU. Plenković, who has just taken over the rotating presidency of the EU, agreed, "We hope we will have a realistic framework that will allow us to reach an agreement over the next 11 months on how to achieve the best future relationship between the EU and UK," Plenković said. Mondes reports from Paris. Enter Boris. When the British PM receives Ursula von der Leyen today, don't expect any negotiations. Johnson, this week is about showing off, writes Annabelle Dixon from London. Johnson's team sees it as the time to demonstrate that the Prime Minister can put his flagship campaign pledge into practice and get Brexit done, ahead of trade talks. The new PM can show his guest around a friendly House of Commons, tell her that the days of parliamentary ambushes and knife-edge votes on legislative amendments to the withdrawal bill are over, and point to his 80-seat majority. The message: if his government doesn't want to do something, opposition MPs have little power to assert themselves. Johnson wants to leave von der Leyen in no doubt that, unlike his predecessor, he is in control and won't be thwarted by his parliament. Welcome back, Ursula. While today's trip to London is von der Leyen's first as Commission President, she's no stranger to the city, having spent a year studying at the London School of Economics and Political Science in the late 1970s, where she was fond of late nights and punk gigs, and kept forgetting to properly close the door to her flat. Bunny Koyeria has the details. ****, confirm your participation and reserve one of the last seats for Politico Spotlight, Achieving Sustainability in the Fashion Industry. What's the Way Forward?, taking place in Brussels on January 22nd. This event will take a broader look at sustainable fashion, the direction the fashion industry is taking, and where policymakers, the industry and consumers have a role. ***, back. From the X-Files, Pedro's back. Pedro Sanchez was confirmed as Spanish Prime Minister on Tuesday, winning a parliamentary ballot on 167 votes to 165, with 18 abstentions. His Socialist Party will now lead a minority government, thanks to a coalition agreement with the leftist Podemos and in part also to the pro-independence Catalan Republican left ERC, which abstained. What to expect? So far, so good. Sanchez is now officially back as PM, after 2 victories in 2 elections last year in long negotiations. His government program includes a pledge to reverse what the left calls austerity, draw up a new set of workers' protections, unwind a 2012 labor market reform, increase the minimum wage, and tax the rich, meaning people earning more than €130,000, and large corporations. Cristina Gallardo walks you through the government manifesto, which you can find here. What to watch. Most importantly, will the Catalan issue calm down? The Spanish and the regional Catalan governments will start negotiations on a solution to the political turmoil in Catalonia within 15 days, treating the crisis as a political one, not a judicial one. Popular Party leader Pablo Casado wasn't impressed. "You're trying to ride a tiger which will not become vegetarian, and is going to devour you," he said. Meanwhile in Brussels, former Catalan Vice President Oriol Junqueras, from the ERC, was elected as the head of the AMEP-strong European Free Alliance in the European Parliament. The EFA forms a political group with the Greens. Problem is, he's still in jail in Spain. Whether Junqueras will be able to leave prison to join next week's Strasbourg plenary is still subject to a decision by the Spanish Supreme Court. Lorraine's Gurki has more. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz and his ministers were sworn in with all the ceremonial sprezzatura of the Republic. They'll have their first cabinet meeting today, and Kurz already has an appointment in Brussels on Sunday, when he'll meet with European Council President Charles Michel and von der Leyen. Next in line, Malta's Labour Party will pick a new leader, and hence the country's new Prime Minister, this weekend. More from Trump World War Powers Vote, U.S. House of Representatives Democrats plans to push a measure limiting the Trump administration's war-making powers are in flux following the Iranian missile attack. Our stateside reporters have more. All for one and one for all. The U.S. thought it was entering a trade dust-up with France over its proposed tech tax. It may end up in one with the whole EU. The European Commission will stand together with France and all of the member states who wish to have the sovereign right to impose digital taxation on companies in a fair way. Trade Commissioner Phil Hogan said during a joint press conference with French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire on Tuesday. "We will look at all possibilities if any tariffs and measures are imposed by the United States." More here from Melissa Hikola. Over and out in town today, Poland's Senate Speaker Tomasz Grodzki, the most senior opposition figure in the country, will be in Brussels today to meet with Commission Vice President Vera Jourova. Among others, "I am going out of concern for my country. Not following the rule of law and democracy could lead to Poland getting cut off from EU funds," he told Reuters' Joanna Placzynska. "One should do everything to avoid this danger and to make sure the situation doesn't come to pass." New job. The Greens group spokeswoman Ruth Reichstein has left Parliament to join the Commission's think tank, becoming the liaison person for von der Leyen's team with the party she knows best. Birthdays: MEPs Asger Christensen, Brian Monteith and Jonas Fernandez, former MEPs Francisco Assis and Stefanek, Politico's Nervi Shaw, Prince Vincent and Princess Josephine of Denmark. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un turns 36. Thanks to Hans von der Burchard and producer Miriam Weber. **** A message from Goldman Sachs. What factor is contributing to Europe leading the charge to cleaner power? Technological advances are helping drive the boom in renewables. Wind turbines and solar panels are becoming cheaper to make and more efficient, which means the cost per unit of energy is falling. The size and capacity of turbines has increased significantly over the last 30 years, which in turn will mean more electrical output from wind farms. Delve deeper with Goldman Sachs' new infographic, and explore what this power shift could mean for our future. Subscribe to the Politico newsletter family. Brussels Playbook, London Playbook, EU Confidential, Sunday Crunch, EU Influence, AI, Decoded, DC Playbook, all our Politico pro-policy morning newsletters. Let's block ads. Why?